Chapter 4, The Love of My Life and Back to AARHUS. A new chapter. Being the CEO of an owner-manager is one of the hardest tasks I've ever had, as you often work with a creative owner who cannot see clearly. But having to be the CEO of one's future husband, the thought scared me, and in a meeting before he was due to bid for the company, I tried to end our short-lived dating period. It was too late, and we were deep into the game, a spicy game with love, family drama, business, children interweaving, crazy exes, etc. I had to roll up my sleeves. He came from the big commercial world and had achieved success with his old business himself. But one thing he had never been was an entrepreneur. Being self-employed is not at all the same as being an entrepreneur. We were opposite poles to each other in our business profiles, as I've always worked with innovation with a different perception and beliefs of sustainable business development or operation. I stayed with the company for a short time, having my own business and plans, so I quietly withdrew from operations and eventually stopped altogether. I was away in Spain a lot, for example on the Camino, as I had to write and geek, and thus I could keep my peace away from the turmoil he had to learn to deal with and that came with him. But that was the intention, and I needed time away to build and get everything ready, while he had to handle his outside world for the upheaval that came with his decisions after his divorce and our relationship. The family and chaos. When two soulmates meet again, they knock everything down for themselves and everyone around them. We had complete control of ourselves. It was as if we had always known each other and had missed each other. The great love and all the dreams were there all of a sudden. It wasn't a crazy infatuation, but a love affair. We agreed on everything, both privately and professionally, so it just went on from there. We moved in together after 6 weeks, married after 8 months for the first time, and the second time 1.5 years later. We set about demolishing the house and building a brand new house for us and our children. We were in the process of starting a new start-up company that was going back to life, and we had consolidated 2 sets of children with huge success and peace. Our happiness, company and family consolidation created chaos for everyone else in the circle. It was chaos built on other people's statements like, not normal, too fast, he should be going back to his ex. There was obviously an expectation and plan from them. In any case, there were as many opinions and as much interference as there are products in a bazaar. According to him, he was extremely grateful that he had finally divorced, and he just wanted to go out into the world and live life again. He had also changed, not just detached, after he went out as an independent a few years before he met me. He ended up with great business success and a divorce. As he so beautifully says, he missed something he had been looking for, something he didn't know what was. On our first date, which lasted 48 hours, he asked me to teach him about love, and he would then help me with my concept. But it wasn't quite right, because he taught me something completely different. Then there was the alignment of expectations, a lot of different dynamics around him and thus us, which were not completely phased out. There was an incredible number of people who wanted to decide and exceed many boundaries, which became the lessons of his life. A businessman who has been hiding behind his exes and family's social skills for many years now worked overtime. As he says, he never had to deal with that rubbish before. But now he stood on his own 2 feet and had to navigate the chaos that came with his decisions. You see, I wanted an equal relationship where we each took our responsibility and maintained our independence and thus the freedom of our relationship. This also turned into a push for him in a direction he never thought he would end up in. Now he was to find himself for the first time without the history of the past. He had said A and had to say B. He had chosen a way that required a U-turn, changing everything for him and everyone around who were not quite on board with that choice. That's the thing with change processes and us humans who do not want them. The rest of the story isn't mine to tell either. I wonder if one day he will write a book himself, or shall we write our story together? From the start, we had everything under control privately, at our own premises, looked at each other and said, let's be happy and do business. I don't know what the two of us would have done if we knew what we had in store. However, life is as life is, and we are constantly evolving. We have regained peace, overcome all the big bumps, and live a quiet life today. What he didn't know was that he taught me about self-love in the process, and not only helped me with my concept. And yes, he corrects my texts and helps with a lot of things, but that was not the overall learning he brought to me. Back then, I had to develop in my femininity together with a man, and I learned this from the chaos that came with him in our meeting and the fresh start we had kicked off. So thank you to you, my husband, for the great love and courage you have, of which you do not even know the extent yet. Thank you for always having the space and accepting me as me, for encouraging me to be who I am and always helping me. Thank you for being an amazing dad. Thank you for fighting when you cannot keep up. Thank you for putting me totally on overtime work with your weaknesses where I need to learn and develop, and which reminds me how important it is that I stand purely and completely within me. Thank you for reading and correcting my book for me. It was and is a great project. Thank you for you and me, even though I could sometimes kill you half to death. Our female-male inner management, the journey of our feminine and masculine consciousness. He comes out 100% as an entrepreneur and has been a leader, owner-manager, and sales director. So together, we are really a power couple no one can separate. We can do anything. There's a minus and a plus in the dualities, finding each other and merging. So the two of us against each other are just not good either. We are simply too strong as humans. He is from the old business world, is an engineer, and was brought up by a businessman who taught him that in order to achieve success, he must be cold and cynical under the cultural umbrella of the family, where self-management doesn't exist. Then you can see how different our worlds have been. My father taught me about the opposite, and about always going after my heart and my passion, and thus being independent, where my whole world is built on self-management. Today, we are both pattern breakers of the hierarchical family culture we each came from two different countries, Persia and Denmark. Two different cultures and religions, yet the same thought forms about the superficial lifestyle and facades which are not bearing daring change processes. We have changed two different family dynasties based on some very outdated thought forms that our families came up with. We know that they've always wished us the best, and they've never done anything to harm us, but they have their thought forms which for us were outdated and no longer useful. What they came up with was not enough anymore, at least not for us. We're very grateful for all they have given us and done for us, even though what they came up with and gave us was not what we wanted, because it forced us to find out what we then wanted. There's no going back when we first start our personal journey through life without families at the core, where they have to be put on the outer edges as a close family relationship and not the mainstay of our world anymore. The way of development is only one way and inevitable if we want to be independent, happy people. Whether the process ends in chaos and separation or unification, requires the readiness and willingness of all parties to change conditions as well as the old dynamic, to develop together. It's probably the same process as when a teenager has to free themselves from their parents. Thus, think, feel, make decisions and learn for oneself. Get to know oneself and find the inner compass, even without the parents. Our ability to let go and respect the other's freedom is the biggest key word here. The universe is built so beautifully and has its own energetic approach. Think that we attract each other. He started the wildest development a few years before I met him, just like the one I started 20 years ago, and he is still in the wildest transformation, like all of us. I can tell you that today he has changed so much that he is the one who codes my algorithm and has taken education and courses to understand the whole emotional part of himself, which he had never learned anything about before. As he says, the emotional world is the one that he has missed all his life and only encountered in our relationship. He taught me to experience myself as the strong and balanced person I have become in our relationship. He also believes that many of the conflicts he ended up in after the divorce arose because he hadn't learned to navigate with all of the emotional input from others and himself. It's something I can endorse that many men after their divorces work overtime with, especially men who have focused on their careers. They are the ones I had dated in my single years. And yes, we as men and women have a serious challenge. All the divorces, family mergers, and new dynamics that we are frontrunners for. New ways to lead and heal the occupational hierarchy that changes over time. One thing for him was to fall in love and be able to love all of a sudden for the first time. The second thing was having to deal with other people's resistance, rejection, anger, and whatever comes from a divorce, which can ruin everything for everyone. The fact is that he and I moved in together 6 weeks after our first date, got married 10 months after, and started building our dream home 3 months after our first meeting, started working together from our second date, lacking the ability to set boundaries. Apparently, it created as much drama around him as an effect of our desires and decisions, which was the cause. You remember everything I wrote about it's not always what is good for us and what we want, which is the same thing that others want? And how a cause has an effect has a consequence. Consequences lead to circumstances. Circumstances bring us experiences, which lead to changes. From these changes we get renewed energy, and that brings wisdom, which becomes a cause of its own. Damn it, we were over 40 years old, with children, and had been self-employed for many years. We were not teenagers or crazy. We were not stupid and blindly in love. We actually had it under control and stuck to what we wanted, despite all that it entailed. In any case, we have learned a lot about ourselves as a contemporary woman and a contemporary man. Our abilities with all the poles in play, and how strong a woman and man can actually be together. Today, he has chosen not to have contact with his family. Finally, I've been given a free hand to write about the last several years of travel we've had together. But I've chosen the short summary you get here, to cherish the children and the fact that the story is not mine. Nor has it directly affected my personal journey in life, but I have been a fellow traveller to my husband's. My journey with him so far, and that story, are a book of an extra 1,000 pages. What I have from that story is that I've actually managed to hold on to myself this time, and not let others affect me and my life. In doing so, I've lived my life as I believe it should be lived, even though and while we created our history together. Its dynamics went as described, and my current husband had to learn his. So I have to say that I have really changed and got myself the personality I have long wanted and worked towards. It's one thing to learn to balance within ourselves alone and develop a lot of ourselves. It's another thing to practice it in a relationship. To reconcile ourselves in agreement and disagreement with equality, independence, and freedom, and be able to remain at peace or restore it again and again when it slips in the bend in the relationship and in the dynamics we each come up with. My current marriage has given me the opportunity to practice and realize myself in a relationship in the new way and with a new thought form I have created in the form of the theory and the tools. The time that has passed has shown me that today I can stand strong within me as a woman, a mother, a businesswoman, a friend, and just be who I am, a strong and conscious person. Also, in relation to my current husband, despite all the different roles I switch between and navigate within our relationship. I know today how to separate and keep myself in a community, in a marriage as described, my current marriage. What is mine and what is his? When I am loving and self-loving, I can set limits and without a doubt keep them with gentleness and love, but also cash with an edge. I have no doubt about what I want and do not want, what I want and what my boundaries are. I have no doubt about what I will agree to, so my doubts are no longer my weak point. I have peace and confidence that everything will be all right in the most beautiful order. When I fall off and get out of balance on the track, I can quickly balance and jump back onto that track again and regain balance. I am here with a new life with 2 amazing children at the age of 20 and 22, a beautiful house, my dream business, where I'm realizing my passions, the loveliest friends and family, in a marriage where we love each other, even if we kill each other at times. We develop together and separately, and I'm only 47 years old. Life has a lot to offer me, and I'm sure that with all my experience and abilities, I shall continue as a happy person, no matter what bumps I encounter on my way. My husband and I use my, his, and our story on the weekdays to inspire other business people and managers, as there are many who can relate to that story, today's family dynamics and exes. Again, it is one of those sore topics we don't talk about out loud in society yet. I'm sure that there will be more and more men and women who want to create awareness about this, as our private lives affect our business life greatly. And in order for us to be happy, we must be able to find balance all the way. Everything we have experienced in terms of the dynamics he came up with has, of course, left its mark. And there have been, at times, unbearable periods for me to balance in, both with ourselves together and together with others. We have kept moving with a lot of travel, sailed many trips, visited festivals, our Camino time out, warm-hearted parties here where we have been the focal point of much life and joy. Fortunately, I had taken my anxiety and the big change processes before we met, so there was room for what he came up with. I came with peace, a lot of loving people and me in wholeness. I have walked to and from the balance, but we always find a new place where we can stand together again and again. I've always been grateful for the reception my family and friends gave us. After all, we had a place to rest, socialize, talk, and be at home. I'm sure that not everyone on my part fully understood what was happening, but they trusted me and backed me up, welcoming him and his children lovingly. They were there and are there for us when we need them. That's one of my other reasons for happiness in life, my amazing friends and the little family I have. I shall round off the book with my journey on the Camino Francis in 2019, and a blog series from my husband's Camino in October 2021, where we again repeat all the laws, theories, and hypotheses that we started the book with in our Camino experiences. The Camino is another one of my reasons for happiness in life. Everyone should walk a Camino, which they choose in their life. Here comes the next part, Book 3.